I give it a year. If it goes beyond a year, it will be 2 years, because after the ANC conference, it will collapse. Remember, the DA said we are prepared to work with the ANC of Cyril Ramaphosa. So the ANC conference is going to remove Cyril Ramaphosa, whether he likes it or not. It's his second term. He's not coming back. So the most likelihood, if they survive a year, after the ANC conference, they will not succeed, because like province of Gauteng, look at it. It has completely rejected the DA and went on to constitute government without the DA. And we're going to make sure that that government of Gauteng works. We're going to support it, because not to support the government of Gauteng is to support the DA. So if the Gauteng government fails, then the doomsayers are going to say, you see, if you don't work with the DA, you are going to fail. So we're not in an alliance with them. We're not voting for them for anything. We're going to vote for their budget, for whatever is required from us in order to defeat the DA and demonstrate to the national leadership that you could have done the same. You don't need the DA for you to survive with the numbers you have. As long as you put progressive proposals on the table, you can still govern without having 50+1, because no one won elections. No one said we must work together. The story that the electorate said we must work together, it's a fiction. Someone just created it. They did not vote for anyone. So if no one is voted for, it means from time to time we must consult one another and get consensus from amongst the parties that are voted into power. The ANC missed that opportunity and went into bed with murderers who are still to account for the killings of our people. When we negotiated with the ANC, we never said we'll not bring Phalaphala. Remember, in a year, 5 years before, when we went, the condition was that the president must be removed. So we said, we're not coming with that condition. Let's deal with issues. Because we knew, after we have agreed, along the other progressive forces, the issue of the president is going to come. It doesn't have to be a deal breaker. Because if we had used it as a deal breaker, the ANC will be saying, we did not negotiate with them because they came with a deal breaker and we could not budge from that level. We said, okay, let's leave that. Even land expropriation and all of that, let's leave them. Let's talk about what are the immediate interests for our people. Let's even leave positions for that matter to look at what can be discussed and agreed upon in the immediate to liberate the poor of the poorest. Still, that got rejected, and then they went back to the meeting of the ANC and said EFF insulted them and all of that as a way of trying to persuade the NEC not to look at the EFF direction. So Cyril has never been a condition in exchange for ministerial positions. We never said that. We've always emphasized that the interest of our people should come first, and the rest of the other issues will deal with them. That's why we, even before the election of the president, we presented Phalaphala to the speaker immediately after she got elected, so that those who are voting for that president, they should know that there is this dark cloud hanging over the head of that president. I think those are the issues that I will respond to, DP.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you, CIC. There are a couple of other questions that are remaining. Somebody asked about the possibility of the president holding a referendum on the issue of land, right? My understanding, there is an act of parliament, it's called the Referendum Act. I can't remember the exact act, in terms of which the initiative to have a referendum is taken by the president. But the referendum, remember, is binding. It has binding consequences, unlike a plebiscite. So there is no way he will go down that route, we know, because he knows what the answer is. I would like to take you back to 2017. In 2017, there was a public participation exercise. People overwhelmingly voted in favor of expropriation of land without compensation. That was the outcome of that public participation exercise. We know that because it was raised about 3 weeks ago by one of the comrades from EFF, it was Comrade Mkhalipi, who asked what happened to that report, which was filed in 2017, in terms of which the public voted overwhelmingly in favor of expropriation of property without compensation. The answer was shocking. This was the answer from one of the ANC parliamentarians. The answer was, we are the lawmakers who are not bound by what the public wants. That was the answer given to us during the orientation 3 weeks ago by an MP of the ANC. That to us made it abundantly clear that the issue of land is not on their agenda, right? So we know out there, remember we're representing 70% of the electorate, right? We may be just 102 seats in Parliament, but our people who voted for us, we have 70% waiting outside, and we are here to execute their mandate, and we are convinced we are going to grow as a force. The other question related to GNU, whether or not, I think CIC has dealt with it, whether or not it's going to last. The GNU lacks political legitimacy. If you lack legitimacy, what happened to apartheid? It was around for years, but it collapsed. Obviously, GNU is not going to be around for a very long time. Indeed, I would associate myself with the remarks made by CIC. It would be miraculous if they would survive longer than a year. Their policies are diametrically opposed, especially ANC and the Democratic Alliance, when it comes to policies relating to the poor people. We all know, for example, the ANC has introduced a number of social grants and also the issues of minimum wage, and the DA is vehemently opposed to that. So we know they will not last. That marriage is not going to last. The other question related to, CIC has dealt with it, related to organizations that were progressive once upon a time, which are now part of the government of national unity, like the PAC, right? We are going to, they are not here for obvious reasons, because they are part of the government of national unity, and we are very clear in our view. Anyone who is part of the government of national unity is contaminated. That is a fact. They are contaminated. But obviously we will engage them. We're not going to throw the baby with the bathwater. They are contaminated, but should circumstances permit, we will continue to engage them as and when it is necessary. But for now, they are part of the government of national unity. There is an excitement about the Blue Lights Brigade. Mm-hmm. Let them enjoy the blue lights for now. Thank you. I think DP and Papa.
Can we then take the last round of hands to ask questions, and then get the responses, and we'll then close the press conference. Number one is the person wearing a green jacket. I think that is the only description we can give. Number two.
Start with the card.
Number three.
They were going to start with the card.
Number one.
Mr. Malema, Christian Duplessis from Netwerk Vriend speaking. So, according to the allegations by Mr. Matotsi, he claims that the EFF did receive 6 million rand or millions of rand
nothing to do with
that was channeled through the GEMA project staff company. Will you please respond to that allegation? And also the allegations from Daily Maverick that has also recently resurfaced that the bank court of the company was used in places where you were also present. Thank you.
Number two.
Covered.
Number 3.
Salome igama ubalungile Mkhize from Emmausburg Power Podcast. Ngimbuzo nje embili kuphela. Dr. Shop, ngisacela ukubuza la in terms of rural development, making it like ukusiza amakhosi ukuthi to utilize the land effectively, to participate in the economy effectively. What are the plans? What are the programs in place? To Bagumane, Mansaka, Benedivisa, ama-stations, ama-colonizers, less as la phambi kwePalamente ngashiya kanjani, and what is the plan ukuthi sizikhiphe because siyabonga.
Yeah. Okay.
Those were the only hands that we had for the second round. Can we then allow the party leaders to then respond, and with the view that they'll also be looking at the closing remarks in terms of the areas of emphasis that must come out of this? UAT?
Yes.
You cover UAT?
Sure.
ATM?
Thank you. I think what we need to emphasize is that there's a narrative that is peddled out that any party that is not part of the GNU does not want progress in our country. It is a country it is a party that is full of anarchists and stuff like that. What we need to emphasize, number one, also there's this issue whereby the parties that are seated here are pro-amendment of the Constitution in some regards. For example, the question of land expropriation without compensation. And that has been used as a narrative to demonize such actions as anti-constitution. Whereas there are also parties in that GNU that also want amendments to the Constitution. For example, the IFP has long called for the amendment of the Constitution to deal with the death penalty case. But that narrative is not used by them. So we just wanted to clarify that amendments to the Constitution is constitutional itself because the Constitution provides for such. The second thing that we want to clarify as well, it is a question of having an opposition in Parliament, because the manner in which our democracy is founded, it is actually encouraging effective opposition or opposition in Parliament. Now you find that any party that is not part of the GNU, in fact, the narrative that is there, it is as if all parties must be part of the GNU, and no questions are asked what then happens to the principle of having an opposition in Parliament to guard against any abuse of power by the executive, which is evident now when you see how the DA is changing its tune, because previously the DA has been calling out the ANC for abusing their power when it comes to having the numbers to vote for issues. It is the very same DA now that is saying, in other words, it is going to protect Mr. Ramaphosa, even though there is wrongdoing by the side or by the view of the former Chief Justice on the issue of Pala. So those are the things that the media needs to report on, that a progressive caucus is more than necessary for that principle of having opposition in our democracy. Number two, we aren't anti-constitutionalism, but what we want, it is what is provided for by the Constitution, which includes amendments. Thank you.
NCC?
No question was posed at me, Chief, but I will answer.
Well,
I will answer because I'm offended. I'm not Julius Malema's attorney. But the VBS issue comes up at every press conference. I noticed the SAPC asked their hand, put their hand down because they were covered by the question from the gentleman in green. You know, no one ever asks the DA how much did he benefit from Steiners. Here in the city of Cape Town, 8 people are before the court for 243 million rand fraud in the city of Cape Town. The city manager has hidden the reports. The speaker is part of the cover-up. The mayor has lied in council. But the DA never gets questioned by the media. It's as if people of color or people who demand who demand equality are being persecuted by the very same media that is supposed to be everybody's watchdog. You people really should go and read your oath. Really should ask, what am I doing here? Am I here in my capacity as a free-thinking journalist? Or am I here to perpetuate the wrongs that are going on out there? Has this man taken anything from VBS? I don't know. Has the DA taken anything from Steenkoff? We all know they did. But you don't push that narrative as hard. And as a man of color, who when he falls in a taxi, it's in the newspaper, it's offensive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I also want to defend CIC. There is a reason why we call this press conference. It was to launch the Progressive Caucus. We did not call it for any other purpose. And I think the media must stop abusing us. If we create a platform for a particular purpose, we are here for that. If you want to interview Comrade Malema on anything, he will decide when and whether or not to accept that. But don't abuse the fact that we have called you for something else, and then you take that opportunity, you turn it around. I'm also offended. I regard that as an abuse. We didn't call you for that. So I would like to protect him. I have every right to protect any comrade who's being abused and is part of the Progressive Caucus. So please, such questions are offensive. I was asked a question, I just want to take the floor and finish. I was asked a question by a journalist, a lady from Pietermaritzburg, who said, yes, about rural development, the role of the kings. Yes, we take land very, very seriously. Those of us who have small pieces of land, like myself, you should come and see what we are doing. We take farming and imparting of skills very, very, very seriously. If one can take you back to long before 1652, how did the African people live? We practiced subsistence farming, and the role that was played by the kings was significant in that regard. There is not a single African who cannot farm. There is not a single African who cannot hunt. There is not a single African who cannot feed himself. I always say, for example, when people are talking with reference to Ingonyama Trust land in KZN, saying that it's fertile land, you have heard this old lady, saying that it's fertile land and it's not being used. I challenge people who say that, go there and see. People who live in those areas are not dependent on 350 rand per month, right? They can feed themselves through subsistence farming. So the answer is simply this. We will train our people, we will capacitate our people, but I am convinced almost every African, farming is in our blood. That's what we did, right, long before we were colonized. It's something that we enjoy. It is something that is close to our heart. Remember, an African is brought to this land, right? We live on this land, and even when we die, we are buried. That's why we are never cremated, so that there is connection between the land. When you are born, when you are surviving, you are still living, and when you are dead, you go back to the soil, you are planted. That's African life. So I'm not worried about kings. They are here in our midst. We know we are farmers with all of them. Was there any other question? Finally, on section 25, I just want to echo what my brother from ATM, Comrade Zugisa, said. Whenever you raise issues of land, an impression is created that we're a group of thugs. We're not thugs. We are law-abiding citizens. We are politicians here. We have every right to criticize the Constitution, which is basically not speaking to the people. Remember, we're representing 70% of the people that we're representing. We may have just 102 seats, but we know our mandate. Our people feel that the Constitution is not addressing their needs. It is not addressing their expectations, right? So we have every right to call for that Constitution to be amended. There is nothing unconstitutional about that. In fact, there are some leaders, including the leader of the Freedom Front and including the leader of the Progressive, the PA, abambe, what's Patriotic Alliance, abambe. I mean, those parties are calling for the return of the death sentence. The death sentence is unconstitutional. That is what the court decided in this country. Now, those are the leaders you should be asking them. Here is the Constitution. How can it be calling for the death sentence to be imposed without calling for the Constitution to be amended? Right? So we can assure you everything we do will be within the law. We are aware of the law. We are fully aware of it, but we will continue to canvass that the law must be changed to the extent that it does not meet the needs and address the aspirations of our people. And that is democracy. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, DP. Let me deal with the issue of the Phala issue. The conclusion then was that there was an abuse of the majoritarian approach of the ANC. Instead of looking into issues, they just used the majority to dismiss the issues. And now today, the ANC does not have majority. What will be an excuse from the DA to say we did not vote for Phala because the ANC abused its majority? The ANC does not have majority. What made us get defeated last time was not substance, was numbers. Exactly. Numbers have tilted now in favor of all those who were voting for the impeachment process of the president. So it can no longer be an excuse that there is an abuse of Phala majority. The statue here, DP, if I'm not wrong, we actually put a motion here in Parliament that statue in front of Parliament must be removed. And the ANC voting with the DA and them, they voted against removing that statue. No, the one that is in front of Mandela. The horse one is Louis Botha. We're saying, how do you put Louis Botha statue in front of Mandela statue? And these guys refuse. If you remember, and if you are around, we tried to remove that thing at night. It's too heavy. It's very difficult. So the program hasn't stopped. We are still trying to find ways of dealing with that arrangement. The ANC in Tshwane actually went to put a fence on Kruger statue, a fence and protect the ANC council in Tshwane, protected Kruger statue. And we had a plan. The problem is that after we put a chain, and then the truck was on the other side to pull, Metro Police came. So we disappeared. After we disappeared, they realized, no, there is a problem here. They went to put a fence, making it very difficult for anyone who wants to remove that statue, legally or illegal. That's how much they are in love with the colonizers. The last point, Judge, I'm not scared of this. I'm the one who spoke about VBS. I'm not scared about this VBS story. There's no Matodzi affidavit. That is a sponsored propaganda that is aimed at intimidating and defocusing the EFF. I will never be defocused by VBS. I will never be intimidated by VBS. I can tell you seated here, and I'm repeating myself, and I'm so disappointed that some CIA doesn't defend me. I sat down with him. I gave him, it was a panel of them. I said, ask me any question you want to ask me. They asked me the same things that you are trying to create an impression that they are new. Those questions were raised at that time and facts were never found. No leader of the EFF received a VBS money. No EFF received a VBS money. Matodzi never alleges in his affidavit that the money was given to the EFF or the leadership of the EFF. In Matodzi's affidavit, which is unbelievable and we dispute, is that the money was given to Sgamega. As Sgamega money, which we never disputed, that Sgamega confirmed it received the money, to an extent that Sgamega was called by the curators of VBS, and Sgamega reached an agreement with the curators of VBS to pay back the loan they took from VBS. That loan has since been paid. So there is no one, even in Sgamega, who has eaten the money of Gogos. They've paid back that money back to the VBS. Try something else. You want to talk about the cut? In the meeting where Samkel and them were interrogating me and thinking they've got facts like you are doing, unless you just arrived from Ukraine, you will not know what are the issues that transpired before. They even made me to take out my wallet in search of the cut you are talking about. They couldn't find it on me. What makes you want to raise the same issue that you probed me, not through questions, literal search, and the cut you are talking about, you could not find in my position? Try something else. VBS will not work. We're not here for the first time. We've been tested before with unfounded allegations which their aim was to achieve a political end. The abuse of state and the state resources has never intimidated us. There is no one who can raise VBS and silence me. The only thing that is going to silence me from raising matters in this country is death. Outside death, nothing will stop me, nothing will intimidate me. I'm not scared of Ramaphosa and all of his cahoots. Let them bring it on. We are ready to fight them. And if they want to arrest, we told them then, this thing you are raising in the Matodzi evidence was even there before people got arrested for VBS. Why didn't they arrest us then? You cannot put any man of the VBS in our pockets or in the pockets of the VBS. That's what Advocate Dalimpofu was saying. He never said the EFF received money. He was saying, let's assume that affidavit of Matodzi is true. Even with the version of Matodzi, there is nowhere where he says he gave the EFF money, but there is nowhere where Matodzi says EFF solicited a bribe or asked for a donation. He says he offered, if we're to believe that particular affidavit. And he doesn't say he has donated money to the EFF account or to the leadership of the EFF. He now speaks about taking the money into Sgamega, which he's got contract with, and it is on the basis of that contract that the curators accepted the settlement of Sgamega. So the matter is closed. But because you have nothing against the EFF and you want to intimidate it going into this 7th Parliament, you go to the dustbin, thresh literal journalism. You start searching for things that are non-existent in an attempt to silence us. Our keeping quiet on this matter is not because we don't have answers, but we are just tired of answering nonsense. Every time we give you facts, you work against the facts because you want to achieve a particular end. The leader of NCC is right. Steinhoff is there. With so many billions disappeared, DA never get questioned. Musimaimani received a car from Steinhoff. That matter is still not spoken about. Musimaimani received a house from Steinhoff. That matter is not spoken about. The white corruption in this country is not spoken about. You are trying to use us in relation to VBS to give corruption a black face, which we refuse. You are protecting white corruption in this country at the expense of the progressive people of South Africa to silence them. Even in the Matodzi issue, there is Communist Party that is alleged to have requested, EFF they say in their own paper, never requested. The Communist Party requested the money. The ANC requested the money and gave, Zolwimi gave an account of a different company. There they implicate them directly and say they requested and even told us where to pay. The EFF did not request. If anything, we offered to donate to the EFF. But those that are recipient of such donation, which we dispute, are now being attacked as if they are the one who went to solicit a bribe. The ANC in Limpopo, the biggest beneficiary of VBS, because they send their municipalities to go and put money in VBS in exchange for gratuity. So that is not spoken about. Again, Polokwane municipality put money in VBS. None of you has asked the question, who was the mayor when Polokwane was putting money in VBS? The mayor was Minister of Justice at that time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chief and all the leaders of political parties, members of the media. Thank you very much for attending the first press briefing of the Progressive Caucus here in Parliament. We constantly will interact with members of the media. You can reach the political parties individually and separately if you want to meet further engagements and interviews. Thank you very much for attending the press briefing. The press briefing from here is adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Absolutely. You can't call them one thing next thing last.
Yeah.
Sure. I don't know how you remain so calm all of the time.
They are abusing us. They got